Don in London, hello. My videos, date, March the 18th. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, and my substance was alcohol. Sorry, I'm thinking ahead when I should be just concentrating on now. Right, Don in London, slow yourself down into the moment of now. My videos are about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. And my addictive substance was alcohol. It still is if I were to go back and have a go. And my behaviour, equally addictive around people, places and things. People, trying to be right with people, trying to be perfect, be in the right place, and things, collecting beyond any need that I can imagine, these days anyway. But I used to use external factors like people, places and things to try and fix my feelings rather than feel right, and then meet people and be in places and just have enough of the right things around me. So gradually learning life, and it seems to have taken 5.5 decades nearly to get to a place where it's okay to be me, just to be me today. So why do I do these videos? To share experience, strength and hope, and to share that the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, can be very helpful in the process of keeping well. I never speak for AA, can't, won't, but I will share about it because it helps keep me sober a day at a time. And the reason why I don't promote AA as such, because it's what you see is what you get. That's attraction. What is working, what is not working is attraction, rather than say AA will fix you, because AA cannot as an entity fix you, because AA is only the people you meet on any given day in a meeting. There are some other administrative arms to the fellowship, to make books and to look at the order of what is going on. And I mean that in a very loose way. People in the hierarchy, if you can call it that, are trusted servants. They work on behalf of the fellowship, not the fellowship working on them. It'll make sense later if you ever need AA. So ultimately it's about independence, freedom of choice and being oneself. So if one has independence, freedom and to be oneself at any time, AA is not there to hold you back. It's there to nurture and hope that one day sober, that's all it is, one day sober, day at a time. And there are some toolkits available. They're called the 12 steps, and then there are the 12 traditions which hold the fellowship together in unity, service and recovery. That's it. So everybody's unique and authentic, so I cannot speak for anybody else. I can only speak about my story. So what is AA? I'll just share the AA preamble on this little card. And I would normally be going to a meeting of one called Just for Today this morning, but the weather's bad and I'm in pain with various things to do with other conditions, not associated with sobriety, other than I'm living long enough that those things have happened. So AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So everybody is equal in the fellowship. Nobody can tell you what to do. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And that's it. Simply a desire. Nothing more, nothing less. I feel like I need to stop. That'll be enough. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. Totally free. But we do ask for contributions if you can, to pay the rent for a room where people meet, and pay for tea, coffee and especially literature, which can be very handy, like on a video. So there are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. And that means that you can be allied to any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution that you choose is right for you. But we don't bring our stuff into the rooms like that. We don't try and impose our values or beliefs on other people. AA does not wish to engage in any controversy, but life is controversial, so we keep it down to a desire to stop drinking, so we can be controversial outside the fellowship if we need to be. Neither endorses nor opposes any causes, so we're all the same, we're from diverse backgrounds, and we have a desire not to drink. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that doesn't mean we put our foot down and say you must do it this way. But in here, it's got the in the little card, it's got the 12 steps down one side, 12 traditions down the other, and the 12 steps are the toolkit, if you like, for an individual to be sober today, freedom to make choices. And the primary one is not drink today, and then see how life can turn out. And that does not mean that life is going to be good or bad. It just means we meet life on life's terms. We live for the experience of now, what is going on now, and how may we fit within it. If it were that simple, why isn't everybody sober? And the answer is, addiction is a malady or an allergy which we cannot deal with on our own. Willpower will not work, because we've gone past willpower to self-obsession, and self will run riot. And the same is true of cigarettes. And I notice in some of the adverts that they say now, try this nicotine patch and your willpower will come back. Well, in fellowship it's the opposite. We don't actually run on self-will. We run on what is right in the moment of now, what is the right next right course of action. So if it's not to smoke or drink, that's what we choose to do. And we get support via fellowship and the network. So, in this book, Daily Reflections, 1 page a day, and March for me, 3rd month of the year, 12 steps, 12 months. So March concentrates in this book on step 3, which is all about letting go. And this is what it says: real independence. The more we become willing to depend upon a higher power, the more independent we actually are. So if we are running on our own resources all the time and trying to make the world our way, we're going to hit problems. So the higher power, as spoken here, is a power that you choose, works in your life, and it can be conscience, your good conscience, an inner voice which talks to you about the good of what can happen now, rather than I want it my way, I'm selfish and I want to make it all for me. All for me doesn't work, as we know, if we live in the real world. Some people call that higher power God, and I tend to do that for a simple reason. It's an abbreviation of what I believe in, which is the universal truth of living, love and wisdom which I get from other people. So truth is what I learn on a daily basis. It's not my own opinion, and it's not necessarily the opinion of somebody who agrees with me. It's the truth of what is going on right now. So I've learned that my opinion, self-opinion, is not truth unless it is fitting reality, and not a reality of my making. So truth, love and wisdom works in my life as a power greater than me, and I choose to call it God. And other people call it conscience, other people call it, and sometimes, don't forget, depending on our life experience, it could be that we believe in God, we are agnostics or firm atheists, because life is dealt us many blows and we don't know how to get out of it, and we think miserable things about the world that it is against us. So if we can let the world back in, then we get our independence back, because we get freedoms based on reality. So here it goes. I start with a little willingness to trust God, and He causes that willingness to grow. The more willingness I have, the more trust I gain, and the more trust I gain, the more willingness I have. So it's willingness to be open to the world and the truth around us. My dependence on God grows as my trust in Him grows. Before I became willing, I depended on myself for all my needs, and I was restricted by my incompleteness. Through my willingness to depend upon my higher power, whom I choose to call God, all my needs are provided for by someone who knows me better than I know myself. Even the needs I may not realize, which is often my truth, learning the truth, as well as the ones yet to come. Only someone who knows me that well could bring me to myself and help me fill the need in someone else that I only that only I am meant to fill. There never will be another exactly like me. Unique, authentic we are. And that is real independence. And actually it's real interdependence, because this world doesn't run on one person's will. Unless you live in Libya, or at least they thought so. And now a United Nations resolution has said it's not such a good thing that one man has power over millions of people, as if it ever was right. But you know what? It happens all the time around us. Self-will run right to self-obsession is completely self-destructive and destructive to all the people that we know. And that's what we know alcohol did for us, for the alcoholic. So when we talk about real freedom and getting the truth, what you see in meetings of AA is so crucial. I find it crucial because I learn wisdom on a daily basis. Just wisdom of what is happening now for other people. And the truth is, by sharing it, often in a meeting, as people see us, what they see is what they get of us. They can give us some feedback if we're open to it. So true independence is opening ourselves up to the world. And there's a phrase, my way or the highway, and some people might say it's thy way is the highway, which is, it's the highway is the life in which we live and all the connections we have in this world. And if we listen to all those connections, they tell us that self-will run riot will take us back to a drink, that we won't get it all our own way, and we need to see how we fit with what is going on around us. And I'm quite emphatic this morning for some reason or other about this. My way is not the highway. My way is a track into a wilderness. And the highway of life is being in the thick of it, interdependent with all those people around us. And there are great examples right now in the world where people cooperate, even under the most extreme circumstances, in what was a first world country turned into a third world country in Japan, where people are doing their utmost to cooperate with others in order to preserve life. Greedy people in that society will be on their own for a long time, not only because of the disaster or cataclysmic disaster which has happened, but they need to work together, as does the world. Strange times are good examples of where things go wrong when one person takes control, or the world throws us disasters, and how to deal with them. And that is by cooperation, not by an independent person saying it needs to be sorted out this way. It takes many interdependent forces to bring us back to balance, and that is the same for humans wherever we are. All good, and also very sad and sorrowful about what is going on in the world, but we can do what we can do. And for the alcoholic like me, who is in recovery, it's not take a drink and see what we can do to be helpful, even if it's just supporting in the most incidental way. It may have an impact which helps. So for me, the Serenity Prayer is always my guide, good or bad, of life on life's terms, whether it's joyful or utter misery. The Serenity Prayer helps me because it's to God or good conscience, the inner voice of good, which helps me find out how to stand on my own 2 feet with everybody else on their 2 feet as well. No bigger, no smaller than anybody else's voice. So to God, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is always, for me, just for today. Substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour could be anything addictive. Work, relationships, collecting, materialism, you name it, I could be there and trying to satisfy some need inside me. Or was it a want? I don't know. I was quite ignorant of my needs and wants for many a year, and unable to distinguish between needs and wants. a need is a need to have something to survive, to be a part of life and continuing on life's journey. And wants, well, wants are superfluous. They're not necessary to existing and having a happy life. So wants for me probably led to trying to fix the way I felt. So wanting to be right, wanting to be able to say, I'm doing a good job, I'm in the right relationship, I have the right material possessions, so other people will value me. So wants probably dictated a lot of my behaviour over the years. Notwithstanding that, there were very good years where life seemed to go along just as it may, convivial, happy, sad as life afforded, having love, being loved, and useful. But underneath there was something missing, and I didn't know quite what it was. And I suspect it was some very necessary life skills around keeping on making mistakes, keeping on learning that fear need not dictate everything that we do. So I guess for me, a fear-driven person for quite a long time. And what's that got to do with addiction? Well, if we're not feeling right inside, emotionally or spiritually, depending on our belief system, emotionally it can be to do with love. So learning how to love a person in an emotional and physical way, yes. At the same time, not quite sure that I ever measured up in any aspect, because fear underlay everything. So these days, just making progress, not being perfect, living life as it can be in the moment of now. So how am I doing this? What's making life possible? And not making life, but experiencing life as it is in reality. Well, sobriety helps. 24 hours a day, a one-day program, and that one-day program of living courtesy of a fellowship, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I can't get to meetings of AA, which has happened over the last couple of weeks with a fractured foot, literature, keeping in touch with people who are in fellowship, who know what it's about to be sober for one day, or an hour, or a minute, all helps me keep a life balance going. So this morning I wake up and I'm okay, emotionally and spiritually, but physically I've got a bit of healing to do, and that's perfectly okay. But what helps me always is knowing where my emotional and spiritual centre is in me, and what's helping me, and that's being able to face life on life's terms. So the Fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't speak for it, never can, never will. It's a collection of unique, it's not a collection, it's a fellowship of unique, authentic people, with one overwhelming similarity, and that sober is best in living, and recovery is one day long. So it would be wrong of me not to include in my story of experience, strength and hope, of living sober, AA, because either the literature, the toolkit, you name it, it keeps me on track. So AA helps me save my life and share a message of experience, strength and hope on a daily basis. So I share the statement of intent about what is AA for people who do not know, or just want a reminder on a daily basis and can't get to meetings, a bit like me at the moment. So it helps me, and I hope it helps other people. That's the primary purpose of the fellowship, as you will hear in this statement of intent, and then a bit of literature. So the statement of intent, or AA preamble, it goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem, help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And a little bit about my story. 35 years of drinking. I shut down completely, became isolated and unable to cope at all. Fear of everything. fear of going out when I had a home, fear of opening the door, fear of answering the telephone, fear of opening a letter. And then I lost a lot, and I had a fear of life completely. Well, fear of living, actually. So not waking up would have been a preference for quite a long time, and several years of homelessness. Not ever having a base did not help me consolidate ever. So life is tough, and we all go through tough times, and my coping strategy just did not work for me in the end. Fixing myself with alcohol so I could face the world. Worked for a long time, and then I couldn't cope. So the gift these days, and there is a gift in this, all those years, joyful, sad, maybe not as deep as I would have wished, but able now to cherish life on life's terms, to love people, be loved back, and do something useful. Simple as that. Keeping it simple for complicated people. And in this book, the Daily Reflections, which I share, it's the 12-step action program which is covered, one step a month, and March is all about letting go and letting others in, or letting go and letting God. And for me it took a long time, because God was not a word which I connected with. So these days I understand God to be truth, love, and works through others. And that simple understanding, truth, not my truth, but the overall truth of now, what I'm learning, love, how to be loved back, and wisdom of others, letting people in, God works through people, all very simple and very understandable for me. So today's one, all about real independence, March 18th. Step 3, let go, let God. The more we become willing to depend upon a higher power, that's letting in the world, the more independent we actually are, and also interdependent, without having people over us or under us. Goes on to say, I start with a little willingness to trust God, and He causes that willingness to grow, to let life in. The more willingness I have, the more I trust again, the more trust I gain, and the more trust I gain, the more willingness I have. My dependence on God grows as my trust in Him grows. Before I became willing, I depended on myself for all my needs, and I was restricted by my incomplete, only my outlook. Through my willingness to depend upon my higher power, whom I choose to call God, all my needs are provided by someone who knows me better than I know myself, even the needs I may not realize, as well as the ones yet to come. Only someone who knows me that well could bring me to myself, bring me to be myself, and help me fill the need in someone else that only I am meant to fill. There will never be another exactly like me, unique, authentic, and that is real independence. And with that overwhelming similarity of a need to keep my head clear, I was sharing with my sister this morning, which made her laugh immensely, and it was an Oliver Cromwell quote, which I have somewhere here. Yeah, what I've said is, right-sized and right relationships, independent and interdependent, life works for a day. Oliver Cromwell, trust in God and keep your powder dry. And for some of us, trust in God and keep your brain box dry. Let in truth, love, and wisdom of others. So my time is up, and as I will share at the end of these videos, the serenity prayer to God, all good conscience of your understanding, which is so important. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is just for today. Legal drug, I guess. My behaviour, trying to be perfect, workaholic, relationshipaholic, and then alcoholic. And I don't know what order they came in, or what the ism really was in me back then. I think the ism was fear. Addicted to fear, wondering what life was really about, and not really understanding it or comprehending it, and then blotting it out as best I could, with either obsessive behaviour or obsessive drinking. And that was in the latter days, I guess, but I was always a heavy drinker, and I was taught well, and there's no blame in that, it's just the way things were. So these days, one day at a time, trying to make life work as it can, with choices, and part of that, for me, is being part of the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't speak for it. I never speak for AA, but I speak about what AA is doing for me on a daily basis. And it helps me be included in life, and it helps me understand what I may do in terms of choices around my life, people, places and things, having no power over those things at all, and that life can be okay, just being me and nothing else, just being me and trying to work it out in the company of others. So fellowship has become absolutely integral to my recovery, one day only, one day today. But it's been going on for a few years now, and I'm glad about that. Relieved that I am no longer obsessed by that necessity to have booze around me at all occasions, and to make life work with it rather than without it. So my ism, if you like, has gone to sobriety in a funny sort of way. AA, what makes it work for me? Going to meetings, it's integral, and at the beginning of every meeting, which slows me down and calms me down, is the AA preamble, and that's the reason why I share it every day, because it's slowing me down into the moment of now. And it goes like this. Remember, I do not speak for AA, nobody does. It's just a fellowship, and I share what it does for me. But this is the preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement, and there is only one requirement for membership, is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that primary purpose of staying sober and helping other alcoholics to achieve sobriety is the keystone in many respects. And there is a 12-step action program for individuals, and the 12-step action program manifests differently as there are individuals in the fellowship. And those 12 steps help us make life work. And they are living steps. It's living a life in a different way, having changed our attitude and behaviour. So the whole program really is geared to change on a daily basis, and simple change in our attitudes, our outlook, and then how we may behave. So we're not perfect, and we only make progress a day at a time, but the gift is that each day we remain sober, we get maybe a little bit more clear on what we can and cannot do. So simple, yet so blinking difficult for complicated people and complicated society, and complicated families and complicated civilization. So it really brings things down into a simple 12-step process. Doesn't mean that all the steps are used all the time. Well, yes it does, because it's changed our attitude and therefore changed our behaviour. But it takes time to learn, and that's one of the things that we humans are, very impatient. And often when we've used drink or drugs or substance or behaviour, it's about fixing ourselves quickly so we don't feel the fear of life, or we put a brave face on and hide, or we use our ego to make ourselves feel better. And the actual truth is we are better off with confidence, faith and courage. And it's not blind courage, it's not blind confidence, and it's not blind faith. It's faith in human nature. And the word God appears many times in the literature of AA, and also for those who are God believers. But it doesn't matter what you believe in. It's as long as you believe in something which is a higher power than us, ourselves. And for me it's good conscience, or as God manifests through people, that is the way they are. And that God represents truth and love. So for that, the higher feelings, if you like, if there are higher and lower feelings, the ones we prefer to have, of love, truth, honesty, openness, willingness, all those things we would prefer to be rather than the negative. So that's what the fellowship does. It just helps us daily. And the daily reflections, this book, this one here, covers a step a month. And step 3, as it reads in the 12-step program, says this. And it says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And that sounds like we understood Him means one way. Well, it doesn't. It actually means the individual chooses or understands God their way. or their higher power, or their good conscience, or whatever it is that defines a higher power, something we can relate to, in the big picture of life, which is beyond my own boundaries. What is the best or right or good next thing to do, based on what is good for everyone, inclusivity rather than exclusion. So when it refers to God, it's the God of your understanding, not mine, which is important, or the higher power you have in your life, which could be good conscience or whatever it may be. It's yours, and it's a precious possession, I guess, an understanding of a higher power. So for March 18th, in this book, Daily Reflections, 1 page a day for a year, it says real independence, and I'll try and say it as best I can. The more we become willing to depend upon a higher power, the more independent we actually are. I start with a little willingness to trust God, or good conscience, and He causes that willingness to grow. The more willingness I have, the more trust I gain, and the more trust I gain, the more willingness I have. My dependence on God grows as my trust in Him grows. Before I became willing, I depended on myself for all my needs, and I was restricted by my incompleteness. Through my willingness to depend upon a higher power, whom I choose to call God, or some people call good conscience, all my needs are provided for by someone who knows me better than I know myself, even the needs I may not realize, as well as the ones yet to come. Only someone who knows me that well could bring me to myself, and to help me fill the need in somebody else that only I am meant to fill. There will never be another exactly like me, and that is real independence, and I go with that wholeheartedly. We are all unique, authentic on our journey, and where we are is unique and authentic, and how we learn to live life. And in As Bill Sees It, this one, another daily reading book if you choose, or more than one daily reading depending on how the day is going, you might need a bit more sustenance. The Coming of Faith, page 51. In my own case, the foundation stone of freedom from fear is that of faith. A faith that, despite all worldly appearances to the contrary, causes me to believe that I believe in a universe that makes sense. To me, this means a belief in a Creator who is all power, justice and love, a God who intends for me a purpose, a meaning and a destiny to grow, however little and haltingly, toward His own likeness and image. Before the coming of faith I had lived as an alien in a cosmos that too often seemed both hostile and cruel. In it there could be no longer inner security for me, no inner security for me. When I was driven to my knees by alcohol, I was made ready to ask for the gift of faith. And all was changed. Never again, my pains and problems notwithstanding, would I experience my former desolation. I saw the universe to be lighted by God's love. I was alone no more. And if it is a metaphor for living, God, good conscience, inclusivity, to be a part of rather than excluded and not part of. Whatever your conception of God, I hope it's working. And good conscience for me, and love, truth, open, honest, willing, all those words which offer me hope on a daily basis are summed up in the Serenity Prayer, which goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And when I say courage to acknowledge serenity, to accept what I cannot change, courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I need help from others, inclusion, so I may be more informed and make the most of how I am today.